Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone, let me introduce myself. My name is Ria Elviana Amfryanti. I'm from the English Education Department, 4th semester, and this is my final presentation for the academic reading course. The title of my presentation is Exploring the Reading Preferences and Habits of Foreign Students across cultural perspective. In this presentation, I will talk the background of the study, the main purpose, theoretical basis, method, findings, and implication. I'll try to explain everything in a clear and relatable way. Hopefully, you'll find the topic as interesting as I do. Okay, reading is one of the most essential skills in education. We all know that being able to read well is closely connected to academic success. But reading is not just about understanding text or passing exams, it's also a social and cultural activity. The way we read, what we like to read, and even how often we read, all of these things are influenced by the culture we grow up in. For example, students from countries with strong reading cultures like Japan or Germany might treat reading as part of their daily routine. But students from places where reading is not really a common hobby might find it harder to develop reading habits. This article explores how students from different cultural backgrounds read, especially when they study abroad. The goal is to understand how their culture affect what they read, why they read, and how often they read, both for academic purpose and for fun. Imagine you are a student. We just moved to another country for university. Everything is new. The environment, the language, the food. And yes, the academic expectations. One thing that might surprise many international students is the reading load in their new universities. Some students might come from education systems where reading textbook or research articles is not really common. They might not be used to analyzing academic sources or reading for long hours. On the other hand, others might come from systems where reading is already part of the daily school routine. Because of these differences, international students often face difficulties adjusting. They may not know what kind of materials they should read, how to read efficiently, or even how to enjoy reading in a second language. That's why this research is important. It tries to uncover how students' cultural background impacts their ability to adapt to reading in an international academic setting. So, what does this research actually focus on? Basically, it wants to understand the connection between culture and reading habits among foreign students. First, it looks at how cultural background shapes what students like to read. Do they prefer academic texts like research article, or do they enjoy fiction, self-help books, or religious texts? Second, it examines how often students read. Some cultures encourage regular reading, while others might focus more on oral learning. Third, the research investigates the balance between academic reading and leisure reading in a foreign academic environment. This balance can be hard to maintain. Many students end up focusing only on academic reading and forget to read for pleasure, which is actually important for emotional health and motivation. Finally, the study looks at the format of reading material. Do students prefer reading printed books, or do they enjoy digital content like ebooks and online articles? All of these elements are explored from a course cultural lens. Now, let's talk about the purpose. Why was this research done in the first place? The main goal is to explore how foreign student reading behavior is influenced by culture. By behavior, we mean the types of books they choose, the time they dedicate to reading, and their reading preferences in different contexts, academic and personal. The researchers also want to understand what types of books are considered valuable or important in different cultures. For instance, some students might value religious texts highly, while others prefer fiction or academic theory. Another important purpose is to see how students manage their time between academic reading and recreational reading. In many cases, international students feel pressured to focus only on academic material and ignore other forms of reading, which isn't always healthy. And the final purpose is very practical, to give suggestion to teachers, institutions, and policymakers. If we understand student reading habits better, we can design programs and support systems that help them succeed both academically and personally. Besides the main goal, this study also has several specific objectives. One of them is to find out types of books students from different cultures value the most. For example, students from South Asia might read religious texts more, while Europa students might enjoy fiction and philosophy. Another objective is to investigate how students choose between academic reading and reading for leisure. Especially in a foreign academic environment, this decision is influenced by their background, time availability, and even stress levels. And And finally, the research helps to benefit education and policymakers by offering suggestions that match student cultural reading habits. So, teaching method can be improved to support every kind of learner. So, why is this study important? Because we live in a globalized world where classrooms are full of students from many different countries. But most education systems still follow local norms. This research helps educators understand what students read, how they read it, and how often. Based on culture, by doing this, teachers can design reading materials that are more inclusive and engaging. The results are also useful for understanding emotional and cognitive development through reading. For instance, if students don't enjoy reading because the material doesn't match their culture background, they might struggle more in school or feel disconnected. This study is based on three major research questions. First, to what extent do culture difference influence reading patterns among foreign students? Second, What kind of books are seen as valuable in different cultures? What do students consider worth reading? The third, how do foreign students divide their reading time between academic purposes and leisure? Do they spend more time reading textbooks and journals, or do they also read for fun and relaxation? This question guided the whole research process, from collecting data to drawing conclusions. This research used two main theories to support the findings. The first one is cultural dimension theory, which look at how people behave based on their cultural background, whether they're more individualistic or collectivist. For example, this theory explains why some students prefer studying in groups and reading socially themed texts, while others read alone and prefer textbook texts about self development. The second theory is reading motivation theory. It explains why people read, whether it is for fun, intrinsic motivation, or because they want to achieve something like good grades, extrinsic motivation. Using these two theories, the researchers could better understand the why behind student reading choice. One interesting part of this study is that it fills some major gaps in previous research. First, many earlier studies focused only on academic reading but ignored how students also read for pleasure. This research looks at both sides. Second, most studies didn't really include students from a variety of cultures or continents. Some only studied local students. This one involves foreign students from different parts of the world. And the third, very few studies explore how motivation, emotion, and even technology impact reading behavior. So this article adds fresh insight to a topic that is very relevant today. Now let's move to the methodology. This study used a mixed method approach. That means it combines two types of data, quantitative like numbers from surveys and qualitative like interview answer. By using both methods, the researchers can understand the reading patterns from different angles, not just statistic but also personal experience and feeling. The quantitative data comes from a survey. It was designed using scales where students had to rate how often they read, what material they preferred, and whether they like digital or printed format. For example, students were asked how many times they read per week, what genres they like fiction, academic, text, religious books, and if they use print, digital, or both. This helps researchers see the big picture and compare reading habits across culture background. The second part involved interview. This gave researchers the chance to ask deeper questions, like how does your culture influence what you choose to read, or what kind of difficulties do you face when reading in an academic context? These open-ended responses help the researchers understand not just what students were doing, but why they were doing it. their motivation, their challenge, and their mindset. The participants were foreign students currently studying at universities. To be included, they needed to have completed at least one semester and be willing to share their reading experiences. The group includes students from various cultural regions: Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Middle East, which help provide a wide range of perspective for comparison. One key finding is that culture plays a major role in reading preferences. Students from collectivist culture, like many in Asia and Africa, tend to read socially or choose texts related to community, religion, or family. Students from individualist cultures, like those in Western Europe or North America, are more likely to choose books about personal growth, independence, or psychology. Uh, this show this shows that even something as personal as reading is deeply influenced by how we're raised and the society we come from. Another aspect is the format students prefer. Do they read books or do they prefer screens? Students from highly digital society are more used to reading online. Like East Asians or Middle Eastern students, others prefer printed books, especially in places where digital access is limited. So, access to resources and familiarity with technology also shape how students read. This table show exactly what kinds of genre and media students from different culture prefer. For example, is Asian student mainly read academic and self-help books in digital formats. Up to 75% of them prefer only materials. South Asian students mostly read religious texts and fiction in print. European students show a balanced pattern, while African students focus more on biographies and printed academic texts. This diversity proves that a one-size-fits-all reading program won't work in multicultural settings. When we look at how students divide their time, most spend more hours reading academic material, especially because of their coursework and exams. On average, academic reading takes up about uh, 15 hours per week, while leisure reading is only around 5 hours. Some students manage a healthy mix, for example, 10 hours for school reading and 7 hours for personal enjoyment. These students usually feel less stressed and more motivated. Of course, reading as a foreign student is not easy. Many face a challenge such as limited vocabulary or language barriers, unfamiliar academic terms, lack of access to books in their preferred language, pressure from academic deadlines. This challenge can make reading feel like a chore instead of something enjoyable, especially when the materials are not culturally relevant. The conceptual framework summarizes everything we've talked about. It shows how culture, language ability, reading format, and resource access all affect reading preferences. It also emphasizes the importance of balancing academic and leisure reading. Both are necessary, one for school success and the other for mental health and enjoyment. To analyze all this data, the resources even develop an algorithm. It sorts students into cultural group, checks their reading behavior, and finds patterns. This algorithm helps organize the information clearly, showing who reads what, how, and why. It's a more systematic way to understand the high variety and reading behaviors among foreign students. The results confirm that culture background has a powerful influence on reading, not just what students read, but how often, in what format, and why they read it. Some students read mainly for academic goals, others include leisure reading as part of their personal development. This diversity needs to be recognized in global classroom. And what does this mean for education? It means we need to create reading programs that consider cultural diversity. We should offer a mix of reading materials, different genres, language, and formats, and also give students room to read for fun, not just assessment. This way, students stay engaged, motivated, and emotionally supported in their academic journey. In conclusion, this research shows that reading is not just skill, it's a reflection of who we are and where we come from. Foreign students bring unique reading habits that are shaped by culture, language, and experience. By understanding this, we can build more inclusive classrooms and help students succeed academically and personally. For future research, the authors suggest using AI tools to track reading habits over time and study deeper emotional responses to reading. Also, it would be great to explore how specific genres affect student performance or well-being and how reading connect to other skills like writing or critical thinking. The more we understand this connection, the better support we can give to students in international learning environment. Okay, thank you so much. That's all for me. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you.